Hello everyone and welcome to spectacular Spa, the Spa-Francorchamps circuit in Belgium, playing host, as is tradition these days, to the Intelligent Money British GT Championship. It's our annual voyage across the English Channel onto mainland Europe and one of the real highlights of the season. And as always, it comes just into the second half of the season. 3 two-hour races remain to decide the outcomes of the various championships this season. And this 2-hour race always is a pivotal moment in that championship chase, as those already doing well look to try and continue that momentum, and those trying to get themselves into contention realise that they're very much running out of opportunities. It is the 4.35-mile circuit which greets the teams here in resplendent sunshine as well. It is well into the high 20s ambient temperature here today at Spa, very un-Spa-like weather, and one person who is able to enjoy that weather a little bit more than myself through this session at least is David Addison. He is roaming the pit lane and has found Jules Gounon. David, good afternoon.
Andy, we've got engines firing up in the pit lane. We've also got Jules Gounon. Welcome back to British GT. But of course, Spa, somewhere you know very well. You won the 24 hours here. This year, it looks a little bit different with gravel traps in new places. How much of a difference does that make to the driver? How much of a challenge is it?
Yeah, it's a big change regarding track limits. We had a lot of runoff area in those spots before in the past. So now you need to respect a bit more the track limit. We can have also punctures due to the gravel, so it's a new variable that we didn't have before. So it's a whole new stuff. We saw that at the test day, a lot of gravel on track. This weekend, people seems to respect much more, but it's still an amazing track, and I'm really happy to be back.
How hard is it dropping back into a championship like this? You know, we've not seen you since Alton Park. You've been off in the same type of car, but different teams, different championships. You know, is it like a USB stick? You just get plugged in and off you go, or does it take time to get used to things again?
Well, I'm lucky enough to be a factory driver for Mercedes, so I only drive the same car all the time. So it's, for me, when I jump in the car, the team are doing a great job. We have Ram Racing, that is a really, really nice team. They are delivering a great car all the time, and to be back with Yen, to be honest, I had a fantastic tap in Ulton. So many people talked about your comments and also the move we made, that I'm really enjoying coming back, and hopefully we can do some more fun this weekend.
I think you won lots of fans as well that weekend for your comments about Alton Park. Jules, good to see you. Good luck for the qualifying session to come. Let's just go and have a walk, because if we stay in the Ram garage, I might be able to interrupt, because you can see me heading towards him, at least to Pau. Sorry to take you away from the data for a moment, but a different sort of a season for you this. On top of the Ferrari in Fanatec GT, the Mercedes as well. How's it going?
It's going well. I'm lucky to drive quite a lot this season. It was not expected, but after some good results in GT World with the Ferrari, I got a call here to drive with John, and I must say I'm enjoying it a lot. It's a very nice car, and I'm learning a lot, so I'm very happy to be here for my home race.
But how hard is it with two, what look like very different cars, the Ferrari and the Mercedes? They're really different to the eye.
Yeah, that's true. They are pretty different. One is in the front engine and one has a rear engine. So at the beginning I thought it was going to be pretty difficult to adapt, and at the end it seems quite easy. I managed to adapt from one to another pretty quickly. So I'm pretty happy with that. And at the end it's track time in the GT3, so it's very important.
And is that a big asset, a big help going into the 24 hours next week, that you'll have done a race here this weekend?
Yeah, next week I will be driving an Audi for the 24 hours. So another car which I don't know yet, so I will discover it on Thursday, and I hope I will adapt as quick as to the Audi as I did with the Mercedes.
Fantastic, good luck. Right, pit lane is open and cars making their way out onto the circuit. And Andy, this promises to be a really dramatic qualifying session.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much, David. David Addison roaming around in the pit lane. Andy McEwen up here in the commentary box today. And as you can see, we've got cars out on circuit for this first of 4 qualifying sessions coming your way. If you are a regular viewer of British GT, then you'll know the score. If you're new here, welcome along. You picked a great weekend to join the 2022 Intelligent Money British GT Championship story. And I'll give you a quick explainer of how the qualifying sessions work. There are 2 sessions for GT3, 2 for GT4, because each car within those classes is shared by 2 drivers. In GT3 it is a pro driver and an AM driver. Each driver goes out for one of the 10-minute sessions, and it is a combined time which will set the grid for tomorrow's 2-hour race. That seemed a bit unnecessary between John Ferguson and Morgan Tilbrook there as they make their way down towards the left-hander at Pouhon. We have got 17 GT3 cars racing here this weekend, but there's plenty of space around the 7-kilometre circuit to fit them all. They really don't need to be fighting over track positioning quite this way, but there you go. Yes, so 2 10-minute qualifying sessions for GT3, 2 for GT4. Each driver goes out and sets a lap time. Their fastest times are added together, and that gives us the grid for the 2-hour encounter tomorrow. So it's not just a case of sticking your pro driver in and sending him on his way. Both drivers have to deliver. Both drivers have to put in a strong lap time, and it's only when we add them together at the end of session 2 that we'll have a proper look at how the grid looks. It'll look a bit like this at the start of the race. 2 by 2 they will come to the rolling start. They're running 2 by 2 towards Blanchimont here as Morgan Tilbrook finally negotiates the Ram Racing Mercedes. The Mercedes, that blue and white number 15 car, won for the first time last time out at Snetterton, with John Ferguson and Ulysse Power getting their first victories in the championship. The number 77 McLaren was a race winner at Donington Park earlier on in the season, and they did so from the pole position. In fact, both of those cars getting their race victories from poles. So starting at the front, obviously, is advantageous in any form of racing, even a 2-hour race around a circuit at which you can overtake. So Morgan Tilbrook then makes his way through the La Source hairpin. Again, those of you who've been watching motor racing at Spa through the years will recognise that gravel trap to the outside of the corner is new, and it's right on the edge of the road. That is very, very likely to catch an errant GT car at some point over the weekend. Then through Eau Rouge and over the top of Radion, and now it is foot flat to the boards, right on the loud pedal as they climb up the Kemmel Straight towards Les Combes. Les Combes is the highest point on the circuit, over 100 metres of difference between the highest and lowest point here at Spa. It really is a fascinating place, a fantastic place to come and watch racing, and you really can see why the drivers enjoy it so. Through the right at Les Combes, where again there is a new gravel trap going through the chicane. That's already caught a few people out, and then down into the braking zone at Bruxelles. Turn number 8, this long right-hander, downhill as well. Easy to get a bit of understeer through there, and then through Speaker's Corner, turn number 19, where again gravel will greet you if you exceed track limits too much, and then down towards Pouhon Corner, where there is also a new gravel trap installed. Through the left-hander, full commitment through here, touching the curb there for Tilbrook. Doesn't run too wide on the exit though, because he wants to hook up that second apex and start the climb back up now through the second half of the lap into the right-left at Fagnes. This chicane, S-bend I would call it, and that is John Ferguson off. So John Ferguson on his first flying lap of the session has found that new gravel trap at Pouhon, thankfully digs himself out of it, and will get the Ram Racing Mercedes back onto the road. But John Ferguson, whose teammate Ulysse Power actually got the pole position for that second race at Snetterton a few weeks ago, because we had a slightly different qualifying format there for the 2 1-hour races. But John Ferguson, unfortunately, getting things slightly wrong here in the early stages, and that is a shame, because he'll have dirt on the tyres, may even have damaged the tyres if he went spinning into that gravel trap, and that's going to impact the rest of his qualifying session. So he continues on his way in the sectors, by the way. Morgan Tilbrook purple in Sector 2. It's actually Nick Halstead's McLaren fastest in Sector 1, and it was a spin for Ferguson just as he went out of shot, and he is a very, very, very lucky man, because he finds an access road, look, through the middle of the gravel trap, which actually prevents the Mercedes from digging in. So a lucky escape there for Ferguson, and he is able to continue with his session, but it was a full 360 at one of the fastest points on the circuit. That will have done the Pirelli tyres absolutely no good at all. The new Pirelli P0 DHF tyres for 2022, slightly softer compound it seems, certainly works well for qualifying, where we expect to see lap records tumbling once we get into the pro session in 10 minutes or so. So Morgan Tilbrook we're on board with. He is fastest so far with a 2 minutes 20.0. That is a 10th.5 quicker than Graham Davidson, who's back subbing for Kelvin Fletcher in the number 11 McLaren, and Nick Halstead's McLaren for Fox Motorsport is third. So McLaren 720S 1, 2, 3 at the moment. Richard Neary in the Mercedes is fourth, and then it's Lamborghini in 5th place. Not this one, it is Michael Igo in the WPI car 5th, because Adam Ballon hasn't yet completed his first flying lap, but he brings the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini uphill now towards Blanchimont at the end of the lap. And Adam Ballon, who in the car he shares with Sandy Mitchell, sits 4th in the championship, winners out the Silverstone 500 earlier on this season. and looking to try and notch up another maximum score here this weekend. Now, James Cottingham in the 2Cs Mercedes, purple look in Sector 2. That means he's quicker than anybody else in that sector, and personal bests everywhere else means that the number 4 Mercedes, which is really coming on form here in the second half of the season, is now fastest in the session, a 2:19.8, but Tilbrook is going quicker again in Sector 1. Look at that, 6.5 tenths up in Sector 1 alone is Morgan Tilbrook, and this looks like on the second lap he's really got those Pirelli tyres into the operating window and might be able to go that little bit quicker, well not even a little bit quicker, a big chunk quicker at the moment. Drops a little bit of time in Sector 2, look. Now on such a long lap, it is possible that tyres are peaking sort of halfway round the second flying lap. Maybe he's just starting now to go over the edge of peak performance. Or it could be that he made a mistake. It's a long middle sector, that. Over a minute spent in the middle sector. Now, careful of track limits there out of Blanchimont. That looked just about okay. Pick your braking point into the chicane, and uphill chicane. Looks like you can carry good speed through the right, but you don't want to sacrifice your line into the left. That looked neat and tidy there for Tilbrook. Bit of a wobble on exit. Again, careful not to run too wide. And this is surely going to be a new fastest time in the session. Morgan Tilbrook comes through in a 2 minutes 19.347. Is 4.5 tenths clear of James Cottingham's second. Ballon went third, by the way, in the Barwell Lamborghini, with Graham Davidson fourth and Alex Maliakin in fifth. Now, Alex Maliakin in the car that he shares with James Dorlin, third in the championship as Maliakin, only a point behind Mike Ligo and Phil Keen's WPI Lamborghini, but they're in a different car this weekend. They're in a Porsche as opposed to the Lamborghini. We'll get into that, I was going to say as and when we see them, but this might well be them coming up into the final chicane. Yes, this is, no, that's the Team Parker car. Not the first time I've confused these two today, because the new red line car is also blue and black, but Nick Jones here in the Team Parker Racing Porsche, which was fastest in free practice 1 earlier on this morning in the hands of his co-driver Scott Mulvin, goes 10th fastest for the time being. Richard Neary has just improved into what was 6th, now becomes 7th though, because Nick Halstead has gone quicker in the number 40 car. There is the other Porsche that I was referring to, the number 32 car. You can see how at a glance you can get those two mixed up, but Alex Maliakin in this Redline Racing car, which he's running this weekend, makes his way out of out of La Source, I should say, once again. And this is an Allied Racing car originally, and the reason they're in it this weekend is because they're going to be racing that Porsche in the Spa 24 hours in a week's time, because of course this round 6th event of the Intelligent Money British GT Championship sort of kicks off the SRO Speed Weeks here at Spa, which culminates in the Total Energies 24 hours at the end, or next weekend, here, hopefully, in similar summer sunshine. Bit of a moment there for Maliakin through Lake Com. James Cottingham, by the way, has now gone fastest by 0.2 of a second. Didn't actually set any outright fastest sectors, but has gone faster than anybody else. Fastest in the first sector now, though, is Mia Fluid. Mia Fluid in the number 76 McLaren is somewhere in the middle sector, having just gone purple in Sector 1 and through the Sector 1 speed trap at the end of the Kemmel Straight as well. So we know the McLarens are going well, but it would be really nice to see the 76 McLaren up in the mix as well. Mia Fluid currently 9th fastest, 1.8 seconds off the fastest time outright, but going very, very quickly in Sector 1. Let's wait for her middle sector to come through then. You can see on the timing tower to the left of your screen, green means a personal best sector, orange means it's not an improvement, and purple means faster than anybody. And there is Mia Fluid. Look, you can see the purple notch in Sector 1 next to the 9th placed McLaren. 8.5 tenths improvement. This is an absolutely brilliant lap, but the middle sector has gone away from her slightly. It is not a very good middle sector, so this is going to cost Mia Fluid possibly a chance at going fastest. The checkered flag will be out in 7 seconds, so this will be her final lap of the session. And is it going to be much of an improvement in the end then? She's 9th at the moment, needs to find half a second nearly to get 8th away from Ian Loggy, the championship leader, who we haven't even mentioned in this session because he's sort of lumbered down in the midfield at the moment. And Mia's Fluid a bit late on the brakes there into the chicane. Meanwhile, what is James Cottingham getting up to? Well, he's lost pole position. It's now Graham Davidson for Paddock Motorsport, not pole position, I should say, the fastest time in the session. We won't know who's on pole until the second GT3 session is completed. But Graham Davidson now a 10.5 to the good, at 2 minutes 19.643. Cottingham is second, had improved in the first sector. The second sector is not an improvement though, so he's breaking even at the moment. He's got the Greystone McLaren, one of 2 Greystone McLarens ahead of him, and across the line he will go then. Can he get the fastest time of the session back? No, he can't. Not an improvement for Cottingham, so it's Graham Davidson then, who looks like he may be fastest. There is Graham. He's actually on another lap here and going quicker again, a personal best in Sector 1, but Graham Davidson needs to keep pushing because, as I said, this doesn't give him pole position. It's the combined time with his co-driver Martin Plowman that will set the grid. So if he can find another 10th or so here, that makes the second session an awful lot easier for Martin. He doesn't need to find quite as much time in order to hold on to the pole. So Davidson, it's worth him pushing, it's worth him going for another lap. You can see the dirt on the road there through Fania, and that will potentially now have scuppered the lap. He's still got the headlights on, he's still pushing, and the middle sector, which will end as they come out of Corpor Frere here, the right-hander at the bottom of the hill. Yeah, middle sector is now 3.5 tenths down, so unless he has an absolutely monster final sector, it looks unlikely that Graham is going to improve massively here, although that final sector you can make some big gains under braking into the chicane if you're feeling brave and if you've got the car underneath you. So can Graham Davidson do this then? Comes out of Blanchimont up towards the end of the lap. He may elect to head for the pit lane if he doesn't think it's going to be an improvement, because of course they've got a limited window of time to get the second driver in, and that's exactly what he does, because a lap around here at flying speeds, if you like, is a 2-minute 19, 2-minute 20 maybe. If you're coasting in at the end of the session, that's going to be 2.5 minutes, and the next session will begin fairly shortly. You want to get the car in as soon as possible, plug your second driver in, make any amendments to the car you want to, and get it ready to go out. Again, Nick Halstead comes through, goes fourth, a late improvement there for Fox Motorsports McLaren. The McLarens are looking good here, aren't they? 3 in the top 4 in that session. The interloper being James Cottingham's Mercedes. 5th is this car, the number 72 Lamborghini of Adam Ballon. Richard Neary 6th for Team ABBA Racing. Maliakin 7th for Redline. And Ian Loggy, confusingly, the championship leader, down in 8th position. So a very intriguing look to qualifying session number 1 for GT3. But as we've said, it's that second session that will ultimately decide things. The pro drivers about to get into the cars. These will be the fastest lap times of the day. And, well, let's see how much further that jumbles the order up. So Davidson quickest then for Paddock Motorsport. Cottingham second for 2Cs. Third is the Enduro McLaren of Morgan Tilbrook. And fourth for Fox Motorsports Nick Halstead. McLaren domination nearly in the top 4 in that session. Barwell Motorsport at 5th, ahead of Team ABBA 6th. Redline 7th. Loggy only 8th. He's got this 30-odd point advantage in the championship. Won't be happy to be 1.2 seconds off the pace there. Assetto Motorsports Bentley is 9th. Ram Racing's number 15 car after that early spin is in 10th position, then it's 11th for 76, 12th is number 5 Greystone McLaren, 13th for WPI Motorsport, that's disappointing for Michael Igo, 14th number 17, which is Ian Campbell in the second Greystone McLaren, and 15th for Simon Watts in the Rocket RJN car. Then it's Team Parker Racing's Porsche in 16th, and the Century Motorsport BMW, which had David Holloway at the wheel. Betty Chen is ill and not able to race with us this weekend at Spa, so that BMW, David Holloway now partnering ex-DTM racer Joel Eriksson, who will be out in the next session. Just like that, qualifying session 1 is complete. We are a quarter of the way through this afternoon's qualifying action, and already a very, very competitive session there with Graham Davidson setting the pace. But what is it, I wonder, about the McLaren 720S that is particularly suiting the Spa circuit? Because we didn't actually get a McLaren on top in either of the practice sessions. It was Team Parker Racing's Porsche in session 1 and Ram Racing's Loggy and Gunon in session 2. So Porsche and Mercedes looking good in practice, but you never quite know how much to read into those practice times. Most of the teams go out there on old rubber and don't bolt the new stuff on until perhaps the very end of FP2, more than likely though, before this qualifying session. So Simon Leonard down at Redline Racing is about to catch up, I believe, with David Anderson down in the pit lane. David, what can he tell us after that first session?
Well, the car, Andy, has come back. They are about to get new boots on it. And Simon Leonard, this all feels a bit more normal. Redline Racing and Porsche are normally in the same sentence. How's this come about, though, to run this weekend rather than the Lamborghini?
Well, again, this is customer driven this weekend because Alex is doing the 24-hour race next week. So this is all in preparation for that weekend, really.
Does it feel more normal to you? I mean, you've made your reputation with Porsches.
No, not really. I mean, we seem to have clicked with the Lambo straight away, so it's going very well. But yes, I think the boys prefer the Porsche, I think, because there's a bit more at home for them. But we're doing well with the Lamborghini, so it's not been too bad a transition. Okay, so you've not had that much track time thus far this weekend, but how's it going? It's going very well, actually. Yeah, it's going good. I think we have potential to be 4, 5, 6 on the grid tomorrow, so that's not bad for first time out with a Porsche with an RS. So I'm looking forward to it.
You're chasing points in this championship as well as the guys preparing for next week. Which is the more important of those two missions?
Well, it's the driver that scores points, not the cars. So wherever we score this weekend goes onto the tally from the last 4 rounds. So we're still in the championship, we're still leading the silver arm, and I think we're 3rd overall in the overall championship. So fingers crossed.
And what then happens for the remaining British rounds? Porsche or Lamborghini?
We're going back to Lamborghini.
There you go. That's the decision. Simon, good to see you. The car will be back out on track very shortly. There's just, of course, time now, Andy, to get the driver change done. New tyres on the car, and then the circuit's going to get busy again.
It is indeed. Thank you very much, David. Fascinating stuff down there at Redline Racing, and make a good point there, because Alex Malikan and James Dorlin, with a 2nd podium finish of the season last time out at Snetterton in race 2, actually moved into 3rd place in the GT3 Championship, and as they said, leading in the Silver Am element by quite some way. They are 1 point behind Mike Ligo and Phil Keane, whose WPI Motorsport Lamborghini is 2nd in the championship, and this car, at least one of its drivers, is the championship leader, Ian Loggy, who has just vacated the number 6 Mercedes at Ram Racing, leading the championship on his own, because Jules Gounon raced with him at Alton Park. Callum McLeod then stood in for Jules at the next 4 events, and 3 events, and now here at Spa onwards, Gounon back in the car, but as Simon Leonard said, it's the driver who scores the points. So if you miss a race as a driver and your teammate goes and wins the race, unfortunately, those points cannot go to you unless you were actually in the car. So that's why we have Loggy singular leading the way over lots of driver pairings who have stuck together for the full season. So, second qualifying session then, getting underway here for the Intelligent Money British GT Championship at Spa, and the pro drivers now jumping into the cars. If we're going to get a new lap record, this is the session in which it will happen. The existing qualifying lap record is a 2 minutes 18.615. That was set back in 2017 actually by Phil Keane in, of course, a Lamborghini back in his Barwell Motorsport days. So a 218.615 is what we're aiming for here as a GT3 unofficial qualifying lap record. It only gets officially classified as a lap record if it happens in a race, but we still keep track of the qualifying times, and this is by far the best weather we've had at Spa for a number of years, so I highly anticipate we will get some very, very quick lap times. 10 minutes is all they have to get it done in, and unlike circuits such as Donington Park, for example, or Brands Hatch, where they can get 6 or 7 efforts in over the 10 minutes. Here at Spa, you're only really going to get 3, maybe 4 flying laps. So there is an urgency with some teams to get out of the pit lane quickly. Other teams, though, leaving it a bit later. SRO Motorsports Bentley, which developed an issue yesterday in free practice. The team were up all night getting the car fixed. It's been working well today, but they are not yet out onto the circuit. Interestingly, their Ginetta, which they run in GT4, had a big off in FP2 earlier on, so the team, having worked all night to fix the Bentley, now having to work all afternoon on the Ginetta as well. There is Jules Gounon, though, the Frenchman, making his way through Les Combes on what is an outlap here still in the Mercedes AMG, so you can get a bit of a taste of what the circuit looks like, but this is not a full push lap, as they would call it. But that is likely to come at the end of this lap and then maybe into the second lap. We didn't see a huge amount of improvements in the AM session in the latter minutes, although there were a couple who managed to find improvements on their final laps. But the pros, though, the reason that they're pros, one of the reasons that they're pros, is that they're able to get in the car and unlock the pace immediately, and it is often on the first flying lap where they do set their fastest times. So Gounon then into the number 6 Mercedes. Remember, it is car number 11, fastest at the moment. Graham Davidson having set the time. Martin Plowman has jumped into the McLaren now, and he is just over 1.5 tenths, 0.167 of a second clear. Then that car is of the 2C's Mercedes. We now add the fastest time from this session onto those fastest times from session 1. So we could have a very, very different look to the order come the end of the session. Gounon making his way there out of Corporal Frere up towards Blanchimont Corner. Jules Gounon, who started off racing in French Formula 4, getting on for a decade ago now. He's done Carrera Cook, he's done ADAC GT Masters, and of course, a winner of the Spa 24 Hours back in 2017 in an Audi, as it was back then. Jules Gounon, who also had stints with Bentley and now here racing Mercedes AMG in British GT. Is a dab hand in any GT3 machinery, it seems, and we're about to see exactly what he can do. Jules Gounon then powers out of the chicane across the start line and begins his first flying lap around the circuit. There is Marcus Clutton, meanwhile, in the number 77 McLaren, winding his way down into Pouhon. and around towards the second of those apexes, and the McLaren is, I believe, on a flying lap here, so clearly the Enduro car quick out of the pit lane in both sessions here. We saw that from Morgan Tilbrook earlier on. Tilbrook ended up in third fastest, so Marcus Clutton needs to find a quarter of a second essentially over the number 11 car to go ahead of it on combined times. And in the first sector then, Clutton, a 39.2 is of course the fastest so far, though he's actually been pipped by Lewis Proctor in the number 5 McLaren in sector 1. And is not as quick as Jamie Stanley's Fox Motorsport McLaren has got in sector 2. So this is a good lap for Clutton, but at the moment it is being bettered by some further back. Sam Neary now goes purple in sector 2 in the Team ABBA Mercedes, but this will be a good benchmark time still from Clutton. In fact, it's going to be Stanley, isn't it, who comes across the line first, because I see the orange McLaren is actually going to be the first one to complete a flying lap, and Jamie Stanley will come through to set a benchmark time of a 2:17.761, obliterates the existing qualifying record by over a second immediately, and Clutton a tenth slower than him. Clutton, though, still ahead of the number 40 car on combined times, but individually in this session, it is the number 40 McLaren which is fastest. Martin Plowman, interestingly, can't get within 0.8 of a second of that fastest time, so at the moment, number 77 does move ahead of number 11 on the combined qualifying times. There are more purple sectors coming in, though, from the likes of Lewis Williamson, from Lewis Proctor as well. Scott Mulvan's just gone quickly in the Team Parker Racing Porsche, as has Ollie Webb, who makes his second ever appearance in British GT in the number 17 Greystone McLaren. So lots of chopping and changing, but it is this car then by 1/10 of a second on combined times, which has the provisional pole position with 4.5 minutes to go in the session. Jamie Stanley, though, has gone purple again in sector 1. So, and they've both been beaten now by Lewis Williamson. Lewis Williamson fastest in the session, and the number 4 car now goes to provisional pole position on combined times by 3.5 tenths. Car number 4 is quicker, but Jamie Stanley here in the orange and black and blue number 40 McLaren is going quicker again with a purple in the first sector. A 38.9 is significantly quicker, was 0.6 quicker than Williamson went on his previous effort. So it's clearly going to be the second flying lap where the drivers have the tyres in the ideal operating window. And Jamie Stanley winding his way through Fania down towards campus, the 90 right, and then climbing uphill all the way towards the end of the lap. What can he do then? Still purple in sector 1, no one beating him for the time being in the first sector. Jules Gounon, by the way, has gone fastest in this session, so car number 6 is fastest in qualifying too, but on combined times that puts that car only 5th, so really goes to show the importance of both drivers doing their job, because Loggy was a little bit off the pace, and that ultimately might well cost them a chance at a front row starting position. Jamie Stanley, though, we're focusing on as he comes through Blanchimont towards the end of the lap, behind the trees. I don't think he exceeded track limits, but it was very, very tight. Now, his middle sector is a personal best. It's not fastest in the middle sector, but it is a very good middle sector. This could well put the number 40 car back onto provisional pole position. At the moment, it's dropped down to 4th on combined times because the 72 Lamborghini goes to pole position. But what can Stanley do? Yes, he gets it back by 1.5 tenths. Car number 40 then to the top of the combined times and fastest individually in this session. But is Jules Gounon about to go and change that? He is 37 thousandths of a second slower than Stanley in session 2 and 57 thousandths quicker than Sandy Mitchell. So on combined times then, at the moment, it is the number 40 McLaren on pole, the 72 Lamborghini second, the number 4 Mercedes is third, the 77 McLaren is 4th, and the top 5 on the grid would be rounded out by the car which was fastest in session 1, number 11 of Martin Plowman. So out of the right-hander at campus they go, and as I've been saying, it's these combined times that are going to make the big difference here, and that is the order I gave you there. Stanley then has put the number 40 car onto provisional pole position, and now we're not seeing any purple sectors coming in. We're seeing a few personal bests coming in, but as I suggested, the pro drivers unlocking the true potential pace in the earlier stages, and perhaps now we're not going to see quite so many improvements then. Gounon up towards the bus stop. He's not improved in either sector so far on this lap. Over the curb, through the right, through the left, across the start-finish line he will go. The Mercedes AMG roars across the start-finish line. The 6.3 litre V8 engine doing its job. And is Gounon going to improve? No, it's not an improved lap time. What of Sandy Mitchell then? Needs to find a 10th.5 to drag this car back onto pole position, and he has improved in both of the first 2 sectors. Again, not outright fastest, but you don't have to do that. 3 personal bests could be enough. So Sandy Mitchell there, just under a 10th.5. He needs to find a bit squirrely out of the chicane. He will have time for one more lap if he needs it, but is this one going to put the number 72 car onto pole position? Across the line he goes, and no, it's a fractional improvement, but it's not enough. He's still over a 10th of a second away from that pole position. So he has one more crack at this. Has he got the life left in the Pirelli tyres in order to set a better lap time? Through he goes then. So currently Fox Motorsport on pole. Fox Motorsport, I'm fairly certain, have never had a GT3 class pole position before, so that would be quite a remarkable achievement, and would continue this run of very, very competitive qualifying sessions in GT3. We've had 6 qualifying sessions so far this year, and 5 different cars have topped those sessions. The only double pole sitters have been the number 6 Ram racing car. They got a pole position at Alton Park and, of course, a pole last time at Snetterton. So Sandy Mitchell working away up through Les Combes, but a 39.7 is a couple of tenths off the session best through that first sector. A couple of personal bests coming in further back, but they're not really affecting the overall running order. Of course, this individual session being topped by Jamie Stanley by a very narrow margin over Jules Gounon, but Gounon's effort is only good enough for 6th on combined time, so the championship leading car at the moment will be starting mid-grid, essentially, and of course, if you ask Ian Loggy how he feels about that, he will probably answer with some trepidation, because he was involved in that start line shunt here 12 months ago with Richard Neary and a few others, so that was when he started on the front row, so starting on that 3rd row of the grid is not going to please Ian Loggy, but he knows that he and Jules Gounon have the capabilities to race their way forward from there over a 2-hour race. Checkered flag is now out, by the way. The time has ticked down to 0. Lewis Williamson then the first to cross the line. Doesn't set an improved lap time on his final effort. We've got a personal best first sector for Martin Plowman and a personal best middle sector for Sandy Mitchell by the looks of it. So Sandy Mitchell is still pushing on in the 72 Lamborghini. We're riding on board with Jules Gounon, but for pole position, it is between Fox Motorsport and Barwell Motorsport. There is Mitchell. Sorry, yes, we were on board with the Lamborghini then through Blanchimont into the chicane. Mitchell then, can he find that last 10th and a bit that he needs out of the chicane? The Lamborghini always good on traction, good on acceleration out of the low-speed corners. Is it going to be a further improvement for Sandy? Yes, it is, and it goes to pole position. Sandy Mitchell, by 23 thousandths of a second, has got the number 72 Lamborghini onto pole position provisionally, but there are still more improvements coming in from the likes of Martin Plowman further back. Now, can Jamie Stanley respond? He needs to. He's been dumped down to 2nd place, and the number 40 car, just 23 thousandths of a second to find, but it's not improved. In fact, no, it's well off the pace in both sectors. This is not going to be an improvement then for Jamie Stanley. In fact, I think it's an in-lap, so they're going to lose pole position at the very, very last moment in the session, and Barwell Motorsports, Sandy Mitchell and Adam Ballon will grab their 2nd pole position in GT3 of the season. They started from pole at the Silverstone 500, and that was a race that they went on to win. They'll be hoping that history is about to repeat itself here at Spa. So lots more of them heading into the pit lane. We did have a late improvement there for Will Tregurtha, but it's not going to bother the front row starters. It's Sandy Mitchell and a very, very happy Adam Ballon and the rest of the Barwell squad watching on there in the pits. I can see David down there ready to have a chat with Adam at some point. But that was a mega, mega effort, and it's not all on Sandy Mitchell, because Adam Ballon did a good job in his session as well. That's what allowed Mitchell to challenge for that pole position, and having just watched his teammates set the fastest lap time of session 2, we can now head down, I believe, to have a chat with Adam Ballon then, and see exactly what he made of that incredible, incredible qualifying session. And yes, we can now then head down into the garage then. Adam Ballon is with David Addison.
Adam Ballon, can't believe that. That was sun lap by Sandy, wasn't it?
Wow, he really pulled it out of the bag. And to do it on his 3rd lap, with how tough this circuit is on the tyres, that's pretty bloody impressive.
The reaction in the garage when the time came up was not only delight, there was a hint of surprise in that as well.
Yeah, well, it's very, very fine margins, but it was the right side of the line. So, yeah, P1.
Fantastic. Let's have a quick word with Mark Lambert if we swing round, because Mark, as team principal, you were perhaps more animated than I've ever seen you after that.
Yeah, buzzing. That's why we go racing. You know, Spa's best circuit we come to. and we knew it was going to be really tight, and we put massive effort into getting Adam going a bit better through Eau Rouge. Literally, that's been the focus for the last however many days we've been there, and it's paid off.
And that pole position matters because this has been a tough season.
Has been a bit of an up and down season. Obviously, we had a great result at Silverstone, but it's had its challenges. But there's work to be done tomorrow. But being on pole for Spa, always a magic moment.
Mark, well done. Right, Andy, let's have a quick look at how they all form up behind.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, what a dramatic end to that qualifying session. And here is how the grid provisionally looks for the Spa race tomorrow. Sandy Mitchell and Adam Ballon on pole for Barwell by 23 thousandths over Jamie Stanley and Nick Halstead, which is still a great effort for Fox Motorsport. Third then is the Williamson and Cottingham 2Cs Mercedes. Enduro Motorsports McLaren will start fourth, and after topping Q1 for GT3, Paddock Motorsport will start the race in the end from 5th, ahead of the championship leader Ian Loggy, with Jules Gounon on 6th place on the grid. Team ABBA Racing's Mercedes is next, ahead of the Red Line Porsche, then Ram Racing's number 15 car 9th, and Greystone GT's number 5 is the better finishing of the two within qualifying. Then 76 is 11th, the second Greystone car is 12th, Assetto Motorsports Bentley in 13th, WPR Motorsport Phil Keane not actually able to do any better than 13th in his session, which is 14th on combined times. Team Parker Racing's Porsche then is 15th, another weekend that promised much through practice but hasn't quite delivered once we got to qualify. Then it's the Rocket RJM McLaren and the Century GT3 BMW 4 Century that rounds out the 17 GT3 cars that we have here today. Don't go anywhere because we're only halfway through the qualifying session with GT4 cars heading up very shortly. But before that, let's remind ourselves of a fantastic first half of qualifying here for round number 7 of the Intelligent Money British GT Championship. So in Q1, for the amateur drivers, there was an early skirmish between Morgan Tilbrook and John Ferguson over track position. Tilbrook eventually getting ahead and pushing on early in the session. So too was Adam Ballon, who would end the session in 5th, and that would provide some really good groundwork for Sandy Mitchell to go out and challenge for pole in session 2. The 2C Motorsport Mercedes will start well after a good initial effort in the first part of qualifying for James Cottingham. He was second fastest in the first qualifying session of the afternoon, and the Mercedes looking strong. Number 15 car came in to change driver after John Ferguson had a spin in the early part of his session, and then it was the turn of the pros. Initially, all eyes on Jules Gounon making his return to the championship. He would eventually move the number 6 Mercedes into 6th place on the grid. He was wringing the neck of the Mercedes AMG GT3 on a circuit that he knows well, and as he tried to get Ian Loggy further up the grid for Loggy's championship challenge. It was, though, the Jamie Stanley-driven Fox Motorsport McLaren which set the early benchmark time and really didn't look like being beaten. The McLarens looking like the strongest package here at Spa, and Stanley must have thought that he had the pole position wrapped up. That was until this man came along and ruined that dream for Jamie, because on his final effort in the session, Sandy Mitchell was able to just hit the McLaren to pole by 23 thousandths of a second. It's Barwell Motorsport on top in GT3. So, GT3 qualifying complete. We now, though, move into GT4, which has already seen quite a lot of drama today here at Spa. In the second free practice session, Assetto Motorsports Ginetta of Freddie Tomlinson had a big off, exiting Pouhon. It was sharing the similar bit of track to the Ram Racing Mercedes, and off it went into the barriers. We couldn't quite piece together exactly what happened, but maybe with a bit more information, down at the Assetto garage is David Addison. And David, that was a scary shunt for Freddie this morning. Well, we will get back to David as soon as we can. He's going to be trying to chat to Assetto, who I did chat to actually myself after FP2, and they were looking at trying to get the car out for quali, I mean, which was an amazing achievement if they could do it, because it really did look a mess after the practice session, but they were confident. Ginetta had all the parts here for them, and they were confident that they'd be able to get it sorted. We will hopefully hear from them shortly, but for that, we will see how they get on in the qualifying session, which has now begun. That track temperature you can see creeping up into the high 40s now. It's a very warm afternoon here at Spa, and we will be hopefully seeing even warmer conditions, yes, tomorrow. There's the incident for Freddie Tomlinson. A big hit into the barriers, front and rear damage, although the team were telling me that most of the damage was centred on that right front corner, as you can see, and have they managed to get the car out onto the circuit? Well, Lawrence Tomlinson should be able to tell us. He is the owner of Ginetta. He's down in the Assetto Motorsport pit lane, and he is now about to catch up with David Addison.
Well, Lawrence Tomlinson is down in the garage, overseeing a car that looks very different from how it was a couple of hours ago. This has been a Herculean effort.
Massive effort. I mean, when it came in, the front crash box was just flat to the chassis. They'd done the back rear corner, sheared the wheel off. So, yeah, the setter have done an absolutely marvellous job. So, yeah, unbelievable.
And a massive cheer went up when it was wheeled out. I mean, that was a great task. In how long?
Well, they've done like 2 hours to do the whole job. Yeah, so we had a spare car. They had to build some bits up. So,
now,
really
I hate to say this, but of course, the timing screen had the name Tomlinson on it when the damage came. What did Freddie do?
It's nothing to do with me.
Was there any contact?
He just lost his, I think he just lost a little bit of concentration on the edge of Pouhon. He saw I think it was a Mercedes, just took his concentration off, lifted a little bit and rotated straight into the wall at like 120, 130 straight into the concrete. So car's super strong, you know, touch wood. So he's hurt his foot a bit, but he'll be back out in the next quali session.
Excellent. A big round of applause just went up. The car is on track. Let's get back to the action.
Yeah, I heard that, David. That's a fantastic reception there for the team who have put in the hard yards this weekend. As I said, fixing the Bentley overnight and the Ginetta over the last few hours here this afternoon. So GT4 qualifying, then we rinse and repeat what we just did for GT3. So driver 1 goes out in session 1, sets a time, and then driver 2 adds their time to the fastest time from session 1 to give us the grid. The only difference is that in GT3 we have exclusively Pro-Am or Silver Am entries, so there is a driver who is definitively quicker than the other, and so it's easy enough to separate them. In GT4 though, of course, things are slightly different, because whilst there are a handful of Pro-Am entrants, most cars in GT4 are piloted by all silver graded drivers, so a silver-silver combination essentially, all competing in the Silver Cup within GT4, which means they're basically of around about the same pace. The team have to designate a driver before qualifying begins in order to choose who goes out in session 1 and who goes out in session 2. So we should see, hopefully, a bit more consistency across the two sessions rather than a wildly changing leaderboard as we had in GT3. The number 33 Porsche we are focusing on here, and quite rightly so. That's the Herbert Motorsport Porsche 718 Cayman of Kevin Say and Antares Au. It is Kevin Say in the car now, and Kevin in unfamiliar territory here, at least as far as British GT is concerned, because his 2 previous outings in the championship have both been in GT3 cars, including, of course, some success earlier on this season. They had a really good result at Alton Park, I seem to recall. So, yeah, interesting to see how Kevin gets on here. He is fastest at the moment in Sector 1, or he was until Jamie Day pipped him in the R-Racing Aston Martin. But to have another car out there then, and Herbert Motorsport are running this car because there is a quirky regulation that says if you are planning on racing in the Total Energies 24 Hours next weekend, you're not allowed to contest in the GT3 class for British GT. There is no such rule, though, that applies to GT4. So Antares and Kevin both using this weekend as a bit of a warm-up for the 24 Hours in a GT4 Porsche, as opposed to the GT3 car in which they shall compete in a week's time. So up towards Blanchimont, Blanchimont he goes, the quick left-hander. And up into the bus stop, it looks like this will be the first car to come through and register a lap time. Now, GT4 lap record for qualifying, set by Mike Robinson in a McLaren 570S back in 2018, was a 2 minutes 31.693. Whether we see that time beaten in session 1 awaits to be seen. This is going to be quite close to it, isn't it? Maybe a 32 as he breaks the time. It'll be 32.7 for Kevin Say. And is that going to stand as the fastest in this first part of the session? Well, he's certainly quicker than Aaron Morgan in the Team Brick McLaren, who comes through behind him. So the Porsche heads out of La Source. There is car number 48. That is Jordan Collard at the wheel of the Toyota. And the Toyota that sits a little way down in the championship, actually, within GT4. Tom Edgar is 7th because he's not done every race this year with Jordan Collard. Tom has competed in every race. Jordan has not. He didn't do the first couple of events. So did debut with the team at Donington, though, where he and Tom Edgar did manage to finish 3rd place. That's their one and only appearance on the GT4 podium so far this year. And let's see whether or not Jordan can wrestle this car into the top 2 or 3 positions in this qualifying session. It's now Jamie Day, by the way, who has set the benchmark at 2:31.608, which is now underneath that unofficial qualifying lap record. So immediately we are seeing some really, really quick times here. What can Jordan Collard do? Can he match that? Well, no, he can beat it, actually. 2:31.431 is nearly 2 tenths quicker than Jamie Day. So it's Toyota from Aston Martin, from Porsche now. Jamie Orton goes 3rd. Kevin Say is 4th in another Porsche, and then Richard Williams in the erstwhile championship leading Audi. Number 42 is in 5th position. That is all about to change, though, because Marco Signoretti is bringing the Academy Motorsport Ford Mustang around the chicane. We know the Mustang always goes well here at Spa. They were a winner at Donington. They were on the podium in 2nd place in our most recent race at Snetterton, and they are 1.3 seconds quicker than anyone else in GT4 qualifying session number 1, a 2 minutes 30.325. And Marco has actually been, I think, maybe slightly the quicker of the two. He and Matt Cowley very, very evenly matched, but it was Marco who set that car's fastest time, certainly in FP2, and the Ford Mustang was 2nd fastest in FP1, and it was inside the top 5, I seem to recall. In fact, no, it was the fastest GT4 car in FP2. So the Ford Mustang perhaps the pre-session favourite, and a very, very impressive time there for Signoretti, which at the moment no one looks like beating, because Jamie Day, who he absolutely put into a different postcode for the fastest time in the session. 1.3 seconds is a big, big gulf between 2 drivers. Very evenly matched machinery. Jamie Day can't actually improve in the 1st sector. He's gone quicker again, has Signoretti, by the way, in sector 1 of this lap. And Jordan Collard here we're seeing, yes, has, we believe, lost a lap time in qualifying, because he and Lucky Kera have not set a time, but Lucky Kera in the number 51 Porsche is on an outlap. Jordan Collard we know to have completed the lap already, so Jordan looks to have lost a lap time that will almost certainly be as a result of exceeding track limits. And, and he's just in it again, surely, as he comes out of Court Ball Frere. Really, really squirrely there over the gravel. And Jordan Collard just needs to rein this in a bit. He's backed off this lap. He knew, even if it wasn't deleted, the lap time, he'd ruined his run up the hill anyway. And he will drop in now behind the Jamie Orton Porsche, which has dropped down to 5th place now. Try and get a nice little slipstream from it, maybe, and go again. He'll have one more effort here, though. 1 minute and 25 left on the clock, so only time for one more lap at the end of that one. And the target that he's aiming for could be about to move, because in the 1st sector of this lap, Marco Signoretti going quicker even than he did on his previous effort, but then in sector 2 drops a 1/4 of a second. So Signoretti good at the start of the lap, but then the Ford Mustang in the middle sector dropping a little bit maybe. Of course, the Mustang really generates most of its lap time down the straights and through the high-speed sweeping corners. So sectors 1 and 3 for the Mustang are ideal. It's that middle sector where maybe some of the mid-engine cars, the Porsches and the McLarens, for example, can come back at it. But the lap starts and ends with Mustang territory, long straights and fast sweeping corners. Can Signoretti end this lap with an improvement? Yes, he can. It's only a small one, but a 2 minutes 30.324. He got all that time back, just about, that he'd lost in sector 2 to improve by a fractional amount. So 1.284 he is now clear. It was a 1,000th or so that he improved by. So Signoretti fastest, Jamie Day 2nd, and already in the pit lane, interestingly, in the R Racing Aston Martin. Jamie Orton here has just improved to 3rd position on his previous lap. Jamie Orton in the number 65 Porsche. And Seb Hopkins and Jamie Orton yet to get onto the GT4 podium overall so far this season. I think they've had, no, they haven't even had a Silver Cup podium either, so they've been there or thereabouts. Even right back at the start of the season at Alton Park, they were competitive, but got involved in a couple of bits of contact along the way. And could Spa maybe be the circuit which yields their first GT4 podiums, I wonder? They're looking like starting maybe in the top 3, at least as far as this session goes. But Jamie Orton comes down through Pouhon then. And as he winds through the middle sector, he is 3rd. Ashley Marshall is 4th. And in 5th place is Richard Williams. And there he is, as if by magic, out of Pouhon. So Richard Williams, who, along with Senan Fielding, had been dominating, really, in GT4 so far this season. The first 3 races, they had 2 wins at Alton Park, a 3rd at Silverstone. They're in a new car this weekend, in fairness. in the Stella Motorsport. They had a damaged chassis coming into the weekend, so they had to change car, and that perhaps is explaining why Richard Williams is a little bit off the pace. Now, Jordan Collard still hasn't set a lap time. He is now on his last chance to do so with the checkered flag out, and it's not going to be a very quick lap time, but it looks like he is at least going to register something. He is 1.8 seconds off the pace by the end of the middle sector, but he just needs to get a lap on the board, because if you don't set a lap time, then it doesn't matter what your co-driver does in the second session, you'll be starting at the back of the grid. So Jordan Collard just absolutely minding his P's and Q's, look, nowhere near exceeding track limits coming out of Blanchimont corner. He is catching Jamie Orton slightly, who I think may have backed off on this lap, but Jordan Collard then looks like he's going to get a lap on the board, but it's not going to be a terribly quick one. Let's see. This could still get himself somewhere into the top 6 or so. Richard Williams, by the way, in the Audi just went 3rd fastest, so just as I said that he was struggling, he has managed to improve, but then immediately that lap time gets disallowed by the looks of it, and he was warned for exceeding track limits at the top of Radion. Jordan Collard, by the way, went 9th fastest in the end, and Lucky Kera comes through and sets an improved lap time, but stays 14th and last in the Veluga Racing Porsche that he shares with Benji Hetherington. They've had umpteen different drivers in that car. It's been hard to keep up with who's been racing that car from round to round. Benji has been in it for a little while and is now going to be joined by Lucky Kera, who has raced in the GT3 category before in British GT. He's raced in GTC as well at Silverstone a year or so ago, and now makes his GT4 debut. So all 3 of the currently available classes within British GT, Lucky Kera, as of tomorrow afternoon anyway, will be able to say he has raced him. There goes Jordan Collard then, 9th fastest for him, but it is the Ford Mustang and Marco Signoretti quickest by a long, long way. And Jamie Day, 2nd fastest. The Toyota Gazoo Racing UK GR Supra, though, comes out of Les Combes, and it was Stéphane Lemaire who went quickest in the French GT qualifying session earlier on today in a Toyota. Jordan Collard, though, not yet able to quite replicate that. So Signoretti fastest for Academy then. 2nd fastest was Jamie Day in the R Racing Aston Martin. Jamie Orton then 3rd for the Team Parker Racing squad, with Paddock Motorsport 4th with their GT4 McLaren, and Stella Motorsports Audi demoted to 5th despite that late improvement by Richard Williams, which was later deleted for exceeding track limits. Herbert Motorsports Porsche is 6th ahead of Assetto Motorsports Ginetta. Great effort that from Joe Wheeler. 7th fastest in that freshly rebuilt car. Well inside the top 10 then. Freddie Tomlinson about to jump into it for session 2. Motus One Racing with a bit of an improvement there as well. 8th fastest for the Motus One McLaren, and that was James Wallace, 16-year-old James Wallace out in that session. Good effort there to get into the top 10. The Toyota of Jordan Collard we saw was 9th after a troubled session, and the championship leaders there, Matt Topham only 10th fastest for Newbridge Motorsport, but of course he was an AM driver surrounded by silvers, so you would expect him to be a bit further down the order. It's now down to Darren Turner to try and get that car a bit further up the order at the end of Q2. So Marco Signoretti then, the Canadian driver, climbs out of the number 61 Ford Mustang. Matt Cowley now, ex-Formula Ford 1600 ace in the UK, will jump into it for session 2, and in fact already has, because it's trundling down the pit lane now, the Mustang, and we're seeing there Jamie Orton in the number 65 car. Well, he's actually out of that car now, having handed over to Seb Hopkins now for part 2 of the qualifying session. So again, the attention now turns away from individual lap times within a session to the combined times, which will give us the GT4 grid. Before we get the second GT4 qualifying session underway, though, let's head down to Academy Motorsport. Marco Signoretti fastest in Q1 and now catches up with David.
It's all smiles at Academy Motorsport. Marco Signoretti, what a lap, what a margin, well done.
Yeah, thank you. No, first time here, and I'm clearly loving it. So, yeah, just looking to see how Matt does, and looking forward to tomorrow.
You've answered my next question, which was, have you ever raced here before? Clearly not, so obviously you love the place.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. You know, I've grown up watching my heroes race at this track, and finally to get to drive these corners, it's amazing.
Is this a very Mustang-friendly type of circuit then, with a place where you need lots of torque?
Apparently, no. We have a really good aero and high speed, so our strength is really lean on the cars, and Jeff and the boys did an amazing job dialing in the car, so we're set up well.
Top job, well done.
Marco Signoretti then will now watch on anxiously as Matt Cowley tries to do the business in GT4 qualifying session number 2, the 4th and final qualifying session then for this 7th round of the Intelligent Money British GT Championship. There is Darren Turner aboard the Newbridge Aston Martin. So this car took over the championship lead in GT4 after 2 third-place finishes at Snetterton. They flew a little bit under the radar, but did well actually to get a 3rd place in race 2, having served the success penalty in that pit stop as well. They lead the championship then over Stella Motorsports Audi, because Stella got their first non-finish of the season. Newbridge have finished every race inside with a worst finish of 7th. They've been in the top 5 in the other races, and their consistency now puts them ahead. They're on 104.5 points, which is 8 points clear of the Stella Audi in 2nd, and they in turn are 4.5 points ahead of Jack Brown and Will Burns, who got their first win together for Century Motorsport last time at Snetterton as well. So it's a very, very tight GT4 field, and we've been sort of labouring the point all season long that GT4 is not only giving us a competitive and exciting championship battle, but a competitive and exciting championship battle between lots of different cars. It's an Aston Martin that leads the points, an Audi 2nd, a BMW 3rd, the Mustang in 4th, then another Aston Martin 5th ahead of a Porsche 6th, and a Toyota in 7th. So almost every brand of GT4 car that races in British GT has been competitive throughout the season. They've all been capable of winning races. We've had 5 different winners over the GT4 season so far, and yet in qualifying it has been really a story of domination from Stella, with 3 podium finishes, 3 pole positions, sorry, from the 6 sessions so far. So there's a queue forming at the end of pit lane, and that queue is about to move very, very slowly, reminiscent of my journey over here yesterday afternoon, but they do now get up to speed as the pit lane opens for the final 10-minute qualifying session of the afternoon. Remember, it's car number 61 on pole position provisionally by nearly 1.3 seconds over the 23 Porsche and the 23 Aston Martin, the 65 Porsche 2nd and 3rd. We are heading then down on board here in Harriet's Chariot, the Century Motorsport BMW. It's Chris Salkeld who is giving us a guided tour of Spa, heads up over the top of Radion and heading towards Les Combes once again. Harriet's Chariot, because it carries for the 2nd year in a row sponsorship from British chef Ainsley Harriet, who does make his way to a lot of the British GT events. Ainsley, a bit of a petrol head, and enjoys coming along to watch the racing, and he and Chris Salkeld have had this commercial partnership for a few years now. A great, great guy. We interviewed him at Alton Park, Ainsley. Really, really enjoyed his day, and he'll be cheering on, perhaps from the circuit, maybe from home, as he watches Chris Salkeld pound around here on his outlap down through Brussels. And of course, a lot to do on this outlap. It's not just a case of touring around slowly and then starting your flying lap. You've got to get the heat in the tyres. It's a very hot day, but the tyres and the brakes indeed operate at such extreme temperatures that you have to really put the work through them here on the outlap. You've also got to try and position yourselves among the traffic. There may only be 14 cars, which I say only, that's simply because this is a 7-kilometre circuit. As I said earlier on, you'd think they'd be able or indeed wish to spread themselves out over that 7 kilometres, but actually in GT4 especially, because the cars are a little bit less powerful than GT3 and a bit less aerodynamically friendly, the slipstream makes a bit of a difference. So sometimes queuing up behind another car can aid you in finding better lap times. So as he makes his way out of Corporal Frere, his first flying lap will start very shortly. Let's listen along, shall we, to the BMW as it makes its way, the 3-litre straight 6 turbo, launches Chris Salkeld up the hill. So Chris Salkeld accelerates across the line, and you could hear the change there in the engine note as he really did stand on it for the first time. Then into the right-hander at La Source, through the big dip, and onto a lap he will go. Now, he is far from the first to get onto a flying lap here in this session. We are seeing a few sector times coming in from others around him. You saw that he was dropping way, way back, for example, from the Newbridge Motorsport Aston Martin of Darren Turner ahead. through Eau Rouge, Radiant over the curve. That seemed quite circumspect actually from Chris. I'm not convinced he's up to full speed just yet, just easing himself in here in this first qualifying lap of the afternoon for him. And up the Kemmel straight then, highest point of the circuit, brake just before that curve on the left. Down into third gear, yeah, third in the front engine BMW. The front of this car sticking well, using all the curb through the left there. And now careful not to run too wide through the final right-hander. Bit of a twitch, but that looks nice enough there for Chris Salkveld, who comes down the hill, and Chris at the moment not the fastest in Sector 1. Team Brit's McLaren just behind is Bobby Trundley, and he is actually fastest through that first sector. Bobby Trundley in the Team Brit McLaren, the first ever all-disabled driver lineup to race in British GT. Both drivers using hand controls in the car. And Bobby is doing a really good job, at least in that first sector. He has just been pipped by Senan Fielding, but that's Senan Fielding, somebody who's been racing at this level for an awful lot longer than Bobby. Team Brits really pride themselves on giving drivers of all abilities and experiences as well the chance to come racing, and Bobby Trundley and Aaron Morgan making it to British GT, arguably their highest profile pair of drivers, but they've actually got drivers who compete in multiple different championships across the UK, and they're recruiting new drivers all the time, so a really great advert for UK motorsport in particular, that disabled drivers are able to get out there and mix it with some of the best in the world, share the track with some of the best in the world in their field. And Bobby Trundley and Aaron Morgan certainly not disgracing themselves at all this season. They run in the Pro-Am element of the championship, and it's now more and more frequent that we see them scoring points overall within GT4, though not just within their class within a class, if you see what I mean. So lap times then about to start coming in then in this second session. The combined times are what we will focus on ultimately. Let's see what Trundley can do here, because this looks like a decent effort actually. That first sector was quick, the second sector a little bit further off the pace, but that's where there are more twiddly bits, if you like, more corners to try and negotiate. But Trundley comes through, does a 2 minutes 34.30, and that will put the car provisionally inside the top 6 overall. But of course there are others yet to improve, including Senan Fielding, who is likely to go quickest within this session, but will it be enough to give the Audi pole position on combined times? He brings the number 42 car into the chicane. As I started to say earlier on, this is a different car, a different chassis for Stella Motorsport this weekend, after discovering that the chassis had been cracked either during or before the Snetterton round, and so they've had a new car to try and wrap their head around, and trying to get their championship back on track. And Senan Fielding comes through. He is fastest in the session, but that is still 1.6 seconds adrift of pole position, because Matt Cowley is second fastest in this session, and that's more than good enough after the effort from Signoretti earlier on to keep that car well clear in the fight for pole position. So on combined times, they are nearly 1.7 seconds clear of the rest of the field. Matt Cowley absolutely matching what Signoretti managed earlier on. I mean, 1.6 seconds, it's not uncommon that we talk about 1.6 seconds covering at least the top 10, maybe even the whole GT4 field. Such is the dominance of the Mustang this weekend. And this is something you see quite a lot in GT racing, because obviously all of the cars have this rather complicated balanced performance, which is used to, well, balance the performance and make sure that no one car has a big advantage. But sometimes the way a car generates its lap time is just better suited to a certain kind of track. So the Mustang, the team will admit, is not the best through a tight and fiddly chicane, but give it these fast flowing corners round Spa, round Donington, round Silverstone, it's always going to be one of the most competitive cars out there. Snetterton last time out, they expected to struggle. They really didn't actually struggle all that much, because Cowley and Signoretti had a non-finish in race 1, but then a second in race 2. So had they not non-finished in the first race, could have been an even bigger point-scoring weekend at Snetterton. And Matt Cowley now brings the Mustang out of campus through Cours Paul Frere, and he's got a nice little tow from the Motus 1 McLaren as well ahead of him. So Mustang on pole. The real question is who will start second, I guess. Senan Fielding at the moment has put the number 42 car second on combined times, ahead of the number 65 Porsche, now in the hands of Seb Hopkins. There is only a quarter of a second between those two cars, so 42 and 65 battling for second on the grid. Fourth at the moment will be the R-Racing Aston Martin number 23. Mo Ritson has brought the number 26 Paddock Motorsport McLaren into fifth, and Tom Edgar, with a good effort actually there for Tom Edgar. Tom Edgar only 7th overall in this session, but that's 6th on combined times in the Toyota, which we saw Jordan Collard wrestling around earlier on. Is Cowley going to improve again? He does, gets to within 74 thousandths of Senan Fielding's individual lap time, and that puts them now 1.5 seconds clear of the R-Racing car, which goes second now. So the R-Racing Aston Martin number 23, onto the front row, but Senan Fielding is about to complete a lap, and Senan Fielding's going quicker than anyone in Sector 2, a personal best in Sector 1 as well. This surely will move the Audi back onto the front row of the grid, and it does. Now just 1.1 seconds adrift of pole, but crucially 4/10 quicker than the Aston Martin, so it's now 42 Audi second, 23 Aston Martin third, and Seb Hopkins comes through without improving this time in the Team Parker Racing Porsche, the orange number 765 car, and he will stay in 4th place on combined times. So Senan Fielding's lap time then for 2 minutes 30.20 is about a 10th quicker than they managed in the earlier session, so that is now the fastest ever qualifying lap set by a British GT4 car here at Spa. Can he go quicker again? Can anyone go quicker again in this session? They're all on their final laps now of qualifying. Following here the Tom Edgar Toyota 3. So Edgar doing a really solid job here actually. He improved on his previous lap as well to go 5th within the session, 6th on the grid, as you can see there on the timing tower. That is the combined order that you're seeing. So once those combined times have been added together, that is the grid. The 61 car ahead of the 42. Freddie Tomlinson here now. That is a not particularly healthy front end on the Ginetta. Freddie Tomlinson, first time in the car since his frightening shunt in FP2. And I don't think that front bodywork is quite attached as they would like it. It was really buffeting around at high speed heading into Lake Como. It seems to have settled down again now that the car is at lower speed. Freddie Tomlinson is going quickly. He's 7th within the session. That would actually equal 7th place overall, because I think that's about where Joe Wheeler was within his session. And Freddie Tomlinson, 3 seconds off pole, okay, but only 79 thousandths behind the Toyota of Tom Edgar. So a good lap here from Freddie. Could see an improvement. He has improved in the first sector, a personal best Sector 1 for the Ginetta. He comes past the scene of the accident earlier on. Thankfully, no GT3 Mercedes to try and dodge this time. So it's a clean exit in a car that clearly is not going to be running at 100% performance here with that slightly buffeting front bodywork. But can he improve onto the third row? We'll find out in the next 30 seconds or so, because the checkered flag is out. Matt Cowley brings the Academy Mustang through. He's not improving on this lap, so I don't think it's going to be a new fastest time for him. And indeed, well, actually it was, because the final sector out of nowhere was a purple sector. So faster than anybody else in Sector 3 there. Matt Cowley stays second within this session, but of course further extends the margin for combined times. 1.3 seconds Cowley to Fielding. 61 to 42. What's Senan Fielding doing on this lap? No improvements in the first 2 sectors for the Audi, but the Audi is now 4/10 clear of Josh Miller, who along with Jamie Day became the youngest ever winning combination of drivers in the championship's history at Snetterton last time out. Here comes Tomlinson then, out of the chicane. Freddie Tomlinson, personal best in Sector 1, a decent Sector 2. Sector 3 is not an improvement though, and that's what lets him down in the end. A 2 minutes 31.9 is 3/10 in the end off his previous best, but that's a good effort, not just from Freddie and Joe, but from the whole SRO Motorsports team to get a mid-grid starting position. They will start 7th for the 2-hour race tomorrow afternoon. That is a really good reward for all of the team's hard work. But a damage there, is there, to the back of the Team Parker Porsche as it gets wheeled back into its garage. The rear diffuser flapping loose. That car will end up 4th at the end of the session. So it is a pole position, the second of the season for Academy Motorsports Ford Mustang, Matt Cowley and Marco Signoretti, dominating GT4 qualifying here at Spa. 1.3 seconds their combined advantage over Senan Fielding and Richard Williams, keen to get their championship lead back in the Stella Motorsport Audi. Third then for Josh Miller and Jamie Day's R Racing Aston Martin. 4th was the Team Parker Racing Porsche, and 5th for Paddock Motorsport. A consistent set of sessions in both classes actually for Paddock's McLarens. 6th then for the Toyota Gazoo Racing UK car. 7th for Assetto's Ginetta, the newly rebuilt Ginetta. 8th then, and the first Pro-Am entry, Newbridge Motorsport, the number 27 Aston Martin. Darren Turner was actually not all that rapid in that session, so they will potentially now be in danger of losing their championship lead. Motors 1 Racing on 9th, and Team Brits McLaren inside the top 10. You see, they're getting quicker and quicker with every round. Century Herbert are next with the other Century Motorsport car, 13th, and Beluga Racing's Porsche, rounding out the 14 GT4s. So GT4 qualifying completed then here at Spa-Francorchamps. We've got our provisional grid for the GT4s. It's the Ford Mustang on pole position, but the Audi of Senan Fielding and Richard Williams, David, will start second.
Senan Fielding, different Audi for a change. Tough session that, trying to beat that Mustang.
Yeah, definitely. To be fair, I think me and the whole team, we was going into qualifying and we wasn't sure where we was. We've had a bit of a challenging weekend, but the team has been absolutely phenomenal. Like, as soon as anything's been thrown at us, and I've got the best boys around me, and they've worked so hard just to get everything ready. And then I saw the time from the Mustang, and I was just like, all we can do is focus on our own job. And honestly, the car felt so nice then. So honestly, just a big shout out to the boys, because they worked so hard over the last few days. And to come out here and actually get a bit of luck on our side, it was mega, but still a long race tomorrow, so we've only done half the job now.
Well done, good effort.
Thank you very much, cheers.
So thank you very much for joining us here at Spa. Then qualifying done for round number 7 of the Intelligent Money British GT Championship. Join us tomorrow for the 2-hour race. It's set to be a thriller.